Sound of wind, rustling leaves, and distant, dripping water. Have you ever heard a place call to you? Not with a voice, but with a silence so heavy it feels like a warning. Tonight, I'm standing at the mouth of one such place. Deep in the woods, near Niagara Falls, lies a forgotten road in a tunnel carved from dripping stone. The locals call it the Screaming Tunnel, and they say if you come here at midnight, you won't be alone. The story goes back to the early 1900s. Not far from here stood a small homestead, home to a young girl with shoulder-length brown hair and her father, Elias Moran. Elias was a hard man, his temper as rough as his stubbled face. The farm was a place of fear, and one night, the girl decided she couldn't take it anymore. She fled into the darkness, her bare feet pounding the cold earth, seeking refuge in this very tunnel. But some say her father followed. The legend is simple but chilling. They say if you enter this tunnel after midnight and light a wooden match, a mysterious force will extinguish it. You'll feel a cold breath on your neck, and then you'll hear it a scream that echoes endlessly, a scream that belongs to a girl who never escaped. They say her spirit is trapped here, forever replaying her final, desperate moments. Is it just a story told around campfires, or is there something more to the tale? Well, it's midnight now. The air is cold, and the only sound is the dripping water that sounds like footsteps in the dark. I have my I'm going in to see if the legend is true. As I step inside, the darkness is absolute. It swallows the moonlight completely. My heart is pounding. Here we go. I strike the match. The tiny flame flickers, casting dancing shadows on the damp stone walls. For a second, there's just the smell of sulfur and wait, it's out. Just like that. And I swear I just felt something brush past my ear. A cold so sharp it feels like ice. Is that a whisper? Or just the wind? What happens when a local legend feels this real? Was it just a draft? Or did I just meet the ghost of the Screaming Tunnel? Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be experienced. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring the line between folklore and fear, make sure to like and subscribe for more midnight adventures. Thanks for watching. Stay curious. The first time I heard about the Screaming Tunnel, it was nothing more than a drunken story told at a bar in Niagara Falls. I laughed it off. Another ghost tale spun for tourists, I thought. But there was something in the way the old man told it. The way his voice dropped when he mentioned the fire that lodged in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake it. So a week later, I drove out to find it for myself. The directions weren't on any map. Not exactly. You had to know the back roads, the dirt paths, the shortcuts locals whispered about, but never advertised. Even asking for directions at the diner drew wary stares. Why the hell would you want to go there? The waitress muttered, pouring my coffee without looking me in the eye. I heard it's haunted, I said, half smiling, as though it were a joke. Her hand paused. She set the pot down slowly, leaned closer. People who go in after dark don't always come back the same. Some come back quiet, some don't come back at all. If you're smart, you'll stay away. She didn't take my order. She just walked away. By late afternoon, I found myself driving along a narrow dirt road lined with crooked trees. Their branches seemed to arch together like skeletal fingers, blocking out the last of the sunlight. The GPS was useless out there. No signs, no landmarks, just the creeping sense that I was headed somewhere I didn't belong. And then, I saw it. The tunnel's entrance rose from the earth like the open mouth of a grave. Gray stone bricks, cracked and moss-covered, framed the archway. The road leading inside was broken, littered with fallen branches and dead leaves. A foul dampness seeped from its depths. The smell of mildew and stagnant water. Even from the car, I felt a sudden chill. I parked a few feet away. The world around me was silent. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of wind. Just silence, thick and pressing, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Inside, the tunnel was darker than it had any right to be. Even with the sun still low in the sky, the shadows inside swallowed the light whole. I stepped forward cautiously, the crunch of gravel echoing so loud it made me wince. Each footstep returned to me distorted, as though something else were walking just a half beat behind. The walls dripped with condensation, the stone slick to the touch. It felt alive, pulsing faintly beneath my fingers. I forced myself to keep going, deeper into the black throat of the passage. That was when I heard it. Not a scream, not yet, but a faint sound, like a whisper curling along the walls. I froze, straining to listen. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, but beneath it, I heard something unmistakable. The sound of breathing, not mine. Shallow, ragged breaths echoing in the dark. A spoon around flashlight beam slicing across the stone. Nothing. Just water dripping from the ceiling, hitting the ground in irregular plinks. Hello. My voice cracked. The echo mocked me, bouncing back, distorted, like someone else repeating the word in a mocking whisper. I took another step, and that's when I saw it, at the far end of the tunnel, for just a split second. A flicker of orange light danced across the stone, like firelight. Then it vanished. My skin prickled. I fumbled in my pocket, pulled out a matchbox I'd brought deliberately. The legend said that if you struck a match in the center of the tunnel, it would be blown out by unseen hands. I wanted to see for myself. I crouched down in the middle, hands trembling, the damp air cold against my face. I struck the match. Flame flared bright, trembling in the stillness. For a moment, it held, and then gone. No gust of wind, no drip of water, just an invisible force snuffing it out with a hiss, leaving me in darkness so complete it felt like drowning. I lit another. Same thing. The flame lived for a second, then died unnaturally, as though lips pressed against it and exhaled. The silence pressed closer. I realized I was holding my breath, straining to hear the faintest sound. And then it came soft at first, but growing, building, a low wail, climbing higher and higher until it became a shriek so piercing it felt like glass shattering inside my skull. I clapped my hands over my ears, stumbling backward, but the scream didn't stop. It didn't echo like a normal sound. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Inside me, outside me, tearing through the stone itself. Primera, bolted. I ran blindly, crashing against the slick walls, scraping my arms, my knees, desperate for the light at the far end. My breath came in ragged sobs. The scream followed me, never faltering, never weakening. When I burst out into the open air, it stopped. Hus like that silence again. I collapsed on the gravel, gasping, my heart slamming against my ribs. Behind me, the tunnel loomed in stillness. No sound, no light, just darkness watching me like a predator that had already tasted blood. That night, I swore I'd never go back. But the thing about the screaming tunnel is, once you hear it, once you feel it, it doesn't let you go. And I was about to learn that the real horror wasn't inside the tunnel. It was what followed me home. When I got back to my apartment that night, I told myself it was all in my head. The scream I heard inside the tunnel wasn't real. I insisted it was echoes, my imagination, maybe even a trick of the acoustics. Fear had a way of twisting the senses, but deep down, Eek knew better. I left my shoes at the door, tossed my jacket over the chair, and went straight to the bathroom to wash the grime and sweat off me. When I leaned over the sink, I noticed my hands were shaking. My palms were streaked with dirt, and faint scratches marked my arms from where I'd slammed into the tunnel walls. I turned on the faucet. Water sputtered, tin run cold. I splashed it over my face, trying to steady my breath. When I raised my head and looked in the mirror, for half a heartbeat, I swore someone was standing behind me. A small figure. A girl. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped on the tile. But the bathroom was empty. Just the shadows stretching long and thin across the floor. That was the first sign. The second came hours later, after I'd finally collapsed into bed. At first, sleep took me quickly. Exhaustion was heavier than fear. But sometime after midnight, I woke to a faint smell. Acrid, bitter, smoke. I sat up, heart thudding, eyes scanning the dark room. The air was thick, hazy, as though something smoldered unseen. I coughed, stumbling to the window, throwing it open, but the smell didn't fade. It clung to my heart and choking, filling my lungs. And then came the sound. At first, just a faint breath. Inhale, exhale, slow, shallow, ragged. Not mine. Too close, too close. I held still, straining. My skin crawling, and then a whisper. Soft. Childlike. Words I couldn't understand, muttered in a trembling voice. I forced myself to turn my head, to look across the dark room. For a moment, the moonlight shifted through the curtains, and I saw her. She was crouched in the corner. A girl, small, her hair matted and wild, her nightdress torn and blackened with soot. Her skin was gray, blistered, burned raw, and her eyes God. Her eyes hollow sockets, black and endless, staring straight into me. I blinked once, twice, and she was gone. The corner was empty, but the whispering hadn't stopped. It seemed to circle the room, bouncing from wall to wall, closer, closer. My breath came fast and shallow, and then it happened again. The scream. Not faint this time, not distant. It erupted inside my apartment, rattling the windows, shaking the picture frames from the walls. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head, the sound shredding my nerves, making me feel as though my skull would split open. And then silence. The clock on my nightstand ticked softly. The air was clear. No smoke. No girl. Just the faint hum of the city outside. But I knew what I'd seen, and I knew it wasn't going to stop. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was a nightmare. Stress, exhaustion, the power of suggestion. But when I stepped into the bathroom to wash my face, I froze. Across the mirror, smeared in gray ash, were fingerprints. Small, child-sized. I didn't touch the mirror for days. Sleep became impossible. Each night, I lay awake, straining to hear the faintest shift in the air. And without fail, the signs came. Sometimes it was the smell of smoke, sometimes the sound of shallow breathing. Other times, it was the soft flicker of light across the walls like flames, licking at the edges of my vision. But worst of all were the screams. They came without warning. Short, sharp bursts that sent me reeling, heart pounding, ears ringing. Always in the dead of night, always when I was alone. I tried to fight it. I left lights on Primera Bornetsaje. I played music at full volume. Nothing helped. The smoke still seeped in. The whispers still circled. The girl still appeared sometimes for a second in the mirror, sometimes standing at the end of the hallway, watching, her head tilted just slightly, like she was waiting for me to do something. By the fifth night, I was a wreck. My apartment reeked of smoke that no one else could smell. I barely ate. My eyes were bloodshot, my hands trembling from lack of sleep. And still, she came. It wasn't until I woke with my bedsheet's singed edges burned black, crumbling beneath my fingers, that I realized the truth. The fire tea stayed in the tunnel. It had followed me. And if Primera Identity, find a way to stop it. To send her back, I wasn't going to survive. By the sixth day, I couldn't take it anymore. The smell of smoke clung to my clothes, my furniture, my skin. I saw her burned figure in every reflective surface, every corner of every room. And the screams, God. The screams came, whenever the lights dimmed, tearing into me like knives. I knew then, if I wanted to end this, I had to know who she was. I drove back to Niagara Falls. The morning sun did nothing to soften the unease in my chest as I pulled into town. I started at the library, an old brick building that smelled of paper and dust. The woman at the front desk raised an eyebrow when I asked if there were records of fires near the old railway tunnel. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That place. Again, say, moderate. But after a moment, she disappeared into the stacks, returning with a stack of yellowed newspapers bound with twine. I spent hours hunched over those pages, squinting at faded ink. And then, finally, I found it. 1912. Local farmhouse consumed by fire. One fatality reported. The article was short, buried in the back pages. A farmhouse near the tunnel had burned to the ground. The father was found drunk and injured, but alive. His daughter, unnamed, had not survived. My chest tightened as I traced the words with my finger. The report said she'd been trapped inside, but that didn't make sense. If she died in the house, why did her scream live in the tunnel? I kept digging. In another paper, I found whispers, rumors from neighbors that contradicted the official accounts. They claimed the girl had fled the burning house. Some said she was seen running barefoot into the night. Others claimed they heard her crying inside the tunnel, though no body was ever found there. That detail made my blood run cold. No body, no remains, only screams. Primera, need more. So I went looking for someone who had lived here long enough to know the stories. The library clerk mentioned a man named Henry Kessler, nearly 90, who had grown up just miles from the tunnel. It took some convincing, but by late afternoon, I was sitting in his small farmhouse living room. The old man sat hunched in a chair, his eyes cloudy with age, but sharp when they met mine. When I mentioned the tunnel, his face darkened. "You went there, didn't you?" he rasped. I hesitated. "Yes." He shook his head slowly, as though mourning me already. "Then she's with you now." The words sent a chill down my spine. "Who was she?" I asked. His hands trembled as he reached for the glass of water on the table. "Her name was Mary. That's what we called her, at least sweet girl. Always head bruises, always quiet. Her father, he was a monster. Beat his wife. Until she left. Beat that poor child until she could barely walk. Folks tried to intervene, but bucked in. A man's family was considered his property. He stared past me, losing memory. The night of the fire. Primera jajua, ese aboy. I remember seeing the glow in the sky, the smoke curling over the trees. We all ran toward it. By the time we got there, the house was gone. They said she died inside, but I swear to you I heard her scream from the tunnel. Everyone did. It wasn't human. It was the sound of a soul tearing loose. My throat was dry. But why the tunnel? The old man's eyes flicked to mine, sharp as glass. That was her escape. She thought she could outrun him, hide there, but he followed. Some say he caught her inside. Some say he lit her nightdress himself. Others say the fire itself clung to her, wouldn't let go. All I know is her body was never buried proper, and a soul without rest. It lingers. He leaned forward, his voice a harsh whisper. And once you hear her scream, she clings to you. She wants you to know her pain, to burn with her, to die screaming like she did. My stomach churned. I wanted to leave, to run from that house and never look back, but I couldn't. I had to know one more thing. How do I stop it? I asked. The old man's gaze dropped to his hands. His silence stretched on until I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he whispered, "You don't. The only way is to face her. To go back into that tunnel and listen. Truly listen. Maybe then she'll let you go. Or maybe she'll keep you." He wouldn't say more. He wouldn't even look at me after that. I drove back to my apartment in a daze, the words echoing in my skull. Face her. Go back. Listen. That night, as I lay in bed, the smoke returned. The whispers grew louder, circling my head like vultures. And from the corner of the room, her blackened figure appeared again, closer this time, her mouth opening in a silent wail. I knew then I had no choice. If I wanted to survive, I'd have to go back to the screaming tunnel. The tunnel swallowed me whole, and for a brief moment, I thought I had stepped into another world. The air inside was thick, suffocating, carrying with it the stench of smoke and something metallic like rust, or maybe blood. The walls, damp and slick, seemed to close in on me as I pressed forward, my flashlight quivering in my hand. Each step echoed too loudly, the sound bouncing back as if the tunnel itself were mocking me. And then, faintly, I heard it. A sob. At first, I thought it was a trick of my imagination. Maybe the stories had finally burrowed too deep into my head. But no, the sound came again. A soft, broken cry, the kind only a child could make. It drifted from somewhere deep within the tunnel. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. My instinct screamed to run, but my body betrayed me, pulling me further inside as if something unseen were guiding me. The crying grew louder.
"Hello?"
I whispered, though I didn't know why. My voice cracked, sounding small in the oppressive darkness. The sobbing cut off instantly, and then the scream began. It was high-pitched, agonizing, like someone being ripped apart from the inside. The sound filled the tunnel, bouncing from wall to wall until it felt like it was inside my skull. I clapped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. It was in me now, vibrating through my bones. The flashlight flickered, sputtered, and went out. Darkness. I fumbled for my lighter, the one I carried just in case. With trembling hands, I flicked it on. The tiny flame sputtered to life, then blew out, snuffed by some invisible force. My breath hitched. My chest tightened. I flicked it again. Flame gone. Again. Flame gone. Aubert and Aubert. No matter how fast I struck, each flame died instantly, like unseen lips were leaning close, blowing them out. Panic clawed at my throat. That's when I saw her. At first, it was only the outline of a figure, faint and glowing, at the far end of the tunnel. A small girl, her head tilted slightly, her long hair hanging in clumps as though wet. Her dress was ragged, and her arms hung limp at her sides. She didn't move. She only stared at me, or maybe through me. Her face was hidden in shadow, but her presence radiated grief, despair, and fury all at once. Why? Didn't you help me? The words didn't come from her mouth. They seeped into the tunnel, vibrating in the air, pressing into my ears. I wasn't even, I stammered, but my voice cracked. Pathetic. She took one slow step forward, then another. The closer she came, the colder the air grew. My breath turned to mist, my fingers numb around the useless lighter. Why? Didn't you save me? Her voice rose, layered with anguish, rage, and something inhuman. The tunnel shook, dust raining down from its stone ceiling. My legs gave way, and I collapsed to my knees. I wasn't there, I shouted. I couldn't please, but my words felt useless, bouncing back at me like lies. Suddenly, she shrieked the same horrible, blood-curdling scream I had heard before. The sound ripped through me, so loud and so violent I thought my eardrums might burst. I clutched my head, tears streaming from my eyes. And then, in one violent motion, she lunged forward. The light from her body exploded, searing into my eyes, blinding me. I don't remember what happened after. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying at the mouth of the tunnel. The night sky loomed above me, and the faint glow of Niagara Falls lit the horizon. My flashlight was beside me, its battery dead. My clothes were damp, and my skin smelled faintly of smoke, though no fire had touched me. I sat up slowly, my entire body trembling. The tunnel loomed behind me, silent and dark, as if nothing had happened at all. But I knew better, because deep inside that silence, if I listened hard enough, I could still hear it, the faint sob of a little girl, crying for help she would never receive. And I knew she wasn't done with me yet. 4 weeks after that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her scream high and broken, echoing endlessly inside my skull. Sometimes I'd wake up gasping, my throat raw, convinced I'd been screaming in my sleep too. I told myself it had to be my imagination, a trick of fear in the dark, but the reminders wouldn't stop. My clothes still reeked faintly of smoke, even after 3 washes. My skin, no matter how many showers I took, carried a strange, ashy scent. And then came the nights when I woke to find the lighter on my nightstand already open. The wheel scraped raw, as if someone had been striking it over and over while I slept. That's when I realized she had followed me. One evening, desperate for answers, I returned to the screaming tunnel with a camera, determined to capture whatever lingered inside. If I could prove she was real, maybe I could find a way to help her. The tunnel was the same dark, damp, suffocating, but as I stepped inside, the air grew heavier. My camera light flickered. 10 steadied. I forced myself deeper, past the midpoint where I had seen her before. "Why are you here?" I whispered, though my voice cracked like a guilty child's. For a moment, only silence. Then, faintly, the smell of smoke thickened. My throat tightened as if the air itself burned. And then I heard her voice again, soft and broken. They looked, Maine. The image of her small figure appeared, faint, translucent, hands clawing at the unseen walls. Flames licked up around her, though they produced no light, only smoke. Her hair stuck to her face. Her mouth opened in a scream I couldn't hear until suddenly I could. The tunnel roared with the sound of her agony. My camera shook in my hands. The lens cracked. I stumbled backward, but I couldn't leave. "Not yet. What do you want from me?" I shouted. Her head snapped toward me, eyes blazing white like burning coals. "Remember me." The words cut through the tunnel, sharp, final, and then silence. The flames vanished. The figure dissolved. I was alone again. When I checked my camera later, I found nothing but static except for one frame. A single, still image burned into the recording. A girl's hand, pressed against the lens, small and pale. Her fingers charred at the tips. Since that night, I haven't gone back to the tunnel. But I've told this story again and again because I think that's what she wanted. Not revenge, not blood, just remembrance. To keep a voice alive, so she wouldn't be trapped in that scream forever. But sometimes, late at night, I'll strike a match to light a candle, and no matter how still the air is, the flame always goes out, as if she's still there, watching, waiting, and screaming forever in the dark.